Let us welcome again, 2 years after the first time. We have Michael Fiden of the University of Texas here to talk to us about more topics in Sanskrit language and literature. And you're particularly interested in, or you teach quite a bit about anyway, monsters and demons in Vedic texts. And so what do you have for us today?
Yeah, I taught one. I only taught one course on monsters and demons at UT, but I am interested in that stuff. And I know there were a few comments last time, and I wanted to clear that up right away. Is that I don't mean anything derogatory by monsters and demons
Yeah.
at all. So that's not meant to be a slight to anything. But today I thought we were going to talk about Rudra, there's a lot to talk about with him. He's a old god, and he's still around, of course, very popular as Shiva in the tradition now. So we can jump right into whatever anybody wants to hear about Rudra. I can tell you his basic history or his development. We can go into a hymn about him. Anything you guys want.
Yeah, I'm very interested in just sort of a précis of who he is, but I wanted to start off by asking about that name because I was trying to get an etymology on it, and it seems like there's not a very clear answer about it.
No.
Potentially a root for noise or something like that.
Yeah, it's a complicated question. So yes, some scholars said it was speculated that it comes from rud, R-U-D, rud, which means to howl or to cry out or something like that. Um, McDonnell, actually, I think it was him, yeah, in 1897, I think, um, said it was unlikely, and I agree, and that's what people think usually now is that it's unlikely etymology because the reason is that root, it's called a set root, S-E retroflex T, which means that it usually forms nominal constructions with the letter I. So it should be Rudira if it was from root rud. Although they don't always exactly conform to those rules. But I agree with that. And you don't really see anything with Rudra in the early stuff, at least, howling or screaming or anything like that. So I wouldn't know um, where that would be coming from. Although he is connected to storms sometimes, which could be a thing, but I find it unlikely. And just like other names, like Indra, we also don't know what that comes from. Either they're so deep in Proto-Indo-European history we can't construct it anymore, or they just don't mean anything and they're just names. So we don't know exactly.
And set root, that's as opposed to unit root, right?
Yes, Arnet and Set, that's right.
Yeah.
It just means with e the letter I and without it.
Hmm.
That's all it is. On is just the negative.
Yeah, I think that's interesting that a lot of these names don't have certain etymologies. And I think that it's always kind of interesting to keep that in mind because we we're tempted, I think there's a 21st century and definitely like a 19th and 20th century interest in saying like, what does this really mean? But I'm not sure that speakers at the time even had a great notion of what it really meant. Right? It's
No,
just
I
a
I
name.
agree. I'm right with you with that. I agree. Some names are really transparent actually. We can say okay, and sometimes we don't even know which like do we use what this means or is this a god's name here? We don't know. Vayu, for example, is wind. They use it as wind, just wind, and they use it as the god. So some names are really transparent etymologically as well, and some names like Rudra or Indra, it's not clear even if the composers of the Rig Veda knew the etymology or if it mattered to them what the etymology was of these words. It's possible though.
Yeah, and I don't mean to dwell on this, except that I think that it's a curious point that's in common between, Indic, Roman, Greek, Norse. You have some gods' names that are pretty transparent and some that aren't, and I don't think that that's a problem. Like it's always
No,
interesting you can find an etymology, but I don't think they necessarily have one in mind.
I don't think so either. And he's still called Rudra. I mean, now there's different forms of Shiva, but he's the main god is usually called Shiva and not Rudra. But
And
he comes from Rudra.
And so, what is that relationship between Rudra and Shiva? Because Shiva is the name that one hears today so much more often. What is it? Just the same being with two different names? Is it what's happened there?
it's complicated and no one knows. It's just my answer to everything with the Vedas, but it's complicated and no one knows. Basically, there are shared similarities, a good amount actually, between people will tell you that some scholars or teachers will say there's Rudra's completely different than Shiva. They were just he evolved into that, but he's I the more I read these texts, the more I'm not convinced by those arguments. He has a lot of similar characteristics. Not exactly, right? You can see how Rudra turned into Shiva eventually. The name Shiva just means you might hear Shiva too. People say Shiva, but um, it means friend or friendly or favorable, benevolent. Um, he's not called Shiva in the early stuff, the Rig Veda. Um, he's called Susheva, which comes from the same word, it means the same thing pretty much. But he's not exclusively called that. Other gods are called Susheva as well. Um, Rudra, however, is not friendly necessarily in the Rig Veda. He can be, but the theory is they call him Shiva later and Susheva earlier because they want him to be friendly. It's like you call somebody friend if you want them to be your friend, kind of thing, and not because they are inherently friendly. But he definitely becomes Shiva, and a bunch of different streams and of conceptual streams come together to kind of coalesce around this Shiva thing later, and from Rudra and a bunch of other stuff. And it's really complicated, and people are trying to still, including me, are still trying to figure out how exactly each little intricate detail comes together to become Shiva. And also, same questions about Vishnu. So Shiva and Vishnu become huge, and Vishnu is not mentioned very much in the Rig Veda, and he's definitely very mysterious as well.
Do you think that the name Shiva friendly is that something like the Eumenides in Greek, right? The well-minded ones is a name for the Furies.
Oh, I didn't know that. Do they call them that because they
That's,
want them to be that?
I think so.
Yeah, well, that's exactly the same then.
And actually that's my theory behind the name Lofter that's used for Loki is that it's an old past participle for praised one. Right. It's using that sort of euphemistic term for a god that doesn't really do things you want to praise. Um, yeah, that's
That
interesting.
makes sense. That's
Yeah.
really cool. I didn't know that, and that would be exactly the same pretty much. They're calling him Shiva or Susheva in the early stuff because he's not always friendly. Rudra in the Rig Veda, even later on through the Vedic text, he's not friendly always. He can potentially be friendly, but he also equally can potentially kill you or your family or your cows or your livestock, pretty much. But yeah, he doesn't. He's not like Indra. If you praise Indra with poetry, Indra will doesn't often just come and kill you. Invoking Rudra is different. Rudra has a chance of just randomly deciding to kill you.
So
He's not.
tell us a little bit more about who Rudra is in the Vedas. What give us, kind of a
Yes.
précis.
Yeah, he's not mentioned much actually in the Rig Veda. He's kind of tangential. He occurs in three hymns by himself, like poems that are devoted exclusively to him, and that's 1.114, 2.33, and 7.46 Rig Veda. Um, the two other hymns actually, 1.43 and 6.74, he is lumped together with Soma for some reason. I have my own theories about why, but he's mentioned other times. Most often, when you see the word Rudra in the early stuff, the Rig Veda, you'll see it's referring to what's called the Marut. They're a group of they're a troop of men that kind of help Indra on his Indra smashes things and he helps the people. So they help him on his I don't know, his adventures or his deeds, his heroic deeds. They're called Rudras because Rudra is their father. So the most often in the Rig Veda, when you see Rudra, it'll be plural Rudras, and it'll be the Maruts. Curiously, it's not a patronymic. It's just they just call them Rudras you would expect Rudra or Rudrias or something, but it's not. It's just
That's
Rudras.
that's
For some
interesting
reason.
because there are some parallels to that in Norse too, where people are called just by the name, like the seven Hraudwulfs, right? It's the sons of Hraudwulf. Um,
Oh, that's exactly the same
yeah,
then.
you
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
see that.
we
Yeah.
don't know how many Maruts there are either. It's just a band of them, but the Rudra sons.
Kaylee
Um,
Smith has talked about the Rudras and or the Maruts in a couple of his talks in here.
oh, good. Then you already have basic. Yeah, then the Rudra sons. Rudra himself, as the singular god, is not mentioned very much in the Rig Veda. He is in the Atharva Veda, but basically his main deal is he's a god of healing and he's a god of disease. So he can cause disease or he could heal diseases that he caused usually. So he could do either one, right? Right? Um, he's not bound to either one of those. They hope that he'll cure them, but he doesn't always do it. He's always outside of the out there, kind of like an other sort of thing. He does approach the sacrificial fire in one hymn, but very rarely you'll see offerings to Rudra and things like this. They kind of keep it on the down low, but he's scary. He's unpredictable. That's his main feature is that he's very unpredictable, and that's what I think at least. His main thing is that he's a god of unpredictability, whereas Indra is a god of predictability
That
because it's
makes
always going to smash things. Right? This is all my own stuff, so don't cite me or anything on this. But
well, we we can take the insight without making the citation. But
yes,
so he's a selfish, neutral figure potentially rather than good or evil.
he's not good or evil, right? He is chaotic, I would say. True. What do we call it in D&D? I
True
forgot. But
neutral and maybe
yeah,
or
right.
chaotic neutral.
He can disease you and kill your family, or he can heal you. And you'll see in the hymns this anxiety in a lot of them where they're like, Rudra, you're the best, you're the greatest. Please come over and help us. And by the way, don't kill my sons. Just don't kill them. Don't kill my cattle. Don't kill me. Please don't. Oh, by the way, you're the best. Right? It's that kind of thing where you see this kind of they're all kind of anxious about talking or praising him in any way. And there are hymns that, or at least one that says, you don't ever invoke him with other gods. You just do Rudra alone. I think he just out of respect, or I'm not sure why actually, but so he has disease and healing. A bunch of scholars think a bunch of different things about where he comes from originally. Um, some think he's related to Apollo, for example. West, I think a scholar named West thinks he's related to the god Apollo because he has arrows and Apollo has arrows, and both have arrows that cause disease. So Rudra's weapon will always be something that is not direct. Indra has the Vajra, where it's just some kind of mace or hammer. We discussed it last time, where he smashes things, right? Yeah, exactly. But Rudra, I think, are more covert kind of weapons. Arrows. Sometimes he has a lance or a pointed weapon of some kind. Something you throw. You don't exactly know who your enemy is, right? He just gets you, like disease. Um, so something he's related to Apollo like that. There's an old I'm not sure how much your audience knows about the. No one knows a lot about it, but the Indus Valley Civilization, which is the first kind of urbanization of India. There's an old seal that has a picture of something on there called it's called the Harappan. One of the Harappan seals called the Pashupati seal, which has like a Sphinx Shiva on there. Some scholars trace it back to that, although we don't know what that seal is. So I don't really take much stock in that. For
I'm a little,
example,
I'd say I'd be a little skeptical of that Apollo connection. I mean, it just seems like an
me
idea
too.
that could occur to anyone to associate,
Yeah.
shooting disease from afar, right? That doesn't strike me as something you need a connection.
Me either. But scholars like to do this. Others, for example, like Oldenburg, I think it was Oldenburg, connect him to Faunus and Sylvanus in Rome. So they're trying to like draw these parallels. I don't find much use in this, to be honest. But and like you said, it's not hard to see. But Others connect him to like atmospheric kind of phenomena, like the thunderstorm. Weber did that, I think, like the howling storm or the tempest. Um, the atmosphere, Bloomfield is an atmospheric god for him. Um, Matanel also connects us to the thunderstorm. But what all these have in common, I think. Oh, by the way, I forgot to say, he's also connected to spells, so magic kind of stuff, especially ones that are aimed to deflect offensively minded spells from enemies away from you. So he's very associated with that as well. Another thing that comes from afar, you don't know who's who. My idea here is that all these things, the thunderstorm, lightning, he's connected to a lot. Not in the Rig Veda, but later. The common theme is unpredictability. You don't know when lightning is going to strike. You don't know when disease is going to get you. You don't know when your neighbor is going to just randomly decide to kill you with some spell. It's all things you don't know, and that's the unknown kind of. That's why he has this fear kind of thing. He's the unknown, but it's also very powerful. The unknown is fearful, but it's powerful, and that's what Rudra really embodies, I think, at least in the earlier stuff. And you can still see that with Shiva today, where he has that kind of um, aspect to him.
Yeah, so to embrace him is to embrace that anxiety of both the unknown threat, but also maybe the unknown cure, right? Because both kind of seem to come from nowhere often.
Yeah,
And
that's
so,
exactly right. I think. Yeah, and Shiva has that too. Like I said, Shiva's what there's two. There's a bunch, but there's two main sects of modern Hinduism, and I don't know too much about it, so don't get too much stock what I'm saying. But there's Vaishnavas and Shaivites, right? Shaivites who are devoted to Shiva, the god Shiva, will have this aspect where it's not like he's super powerful. He's also a little tricky, right, or unpredictable. He's always meditating in the mountains or something. He's not, and Vishnu, his avatars, for example, a more shining hero kind of feel. But you still see that kind of distinction now with Rudra, with kind of a little bit of fear, a little bit of fear, and
and
love too. But,
and you mentioned a connection to Soma, and you said, well, I've got
well,
some ideas
yeah.
about this. What are some of those
So
ideas? Because that's interesting.
it is interesting. So Rudra is connected to a few different gods in the Rig Veda and the Atharva Veda, actually, but mainly he's connected to Agni. Agni's the fire, if you remember. I think I talked about it last time. But Agni, he's described, oh, Rudra is described in many cases like Agni, red or shining things, or flickering. Um, this isn't a big deal because Agni is compared to every god because it's through Agni that you access the gods. So he's kind of always equated and blurred in this way. So it's not, I think it's hard to read in too much to that. I think if we were, we have to say he's the unpredictable side of fire where it sparks out, where it lights the forest on fire. That would be a Rudrian kind of fire. He's equated with Agni, Soma, like you said. He's only in two hymns, but these two hymns are really interesting because he has it's to Rudra and Soma together as a dual compound. Why he's equated with Soma is a mystery. It could be the color. That's a speculation. Um, I have my own very crazy theory about this. It depends how far you want to go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, you can't say that without kind of touching on it. Like, what's your crazy thought?
Oh, okay. Well, Soma is emblematic of the Soma sacrifice, right? We talked about that last time, I think, where the priest would offer Soma to the gods and drink it themselves, right? Become Vipra or inspired. Um, Rudra is not really associated with the Soma sacrifice yet. I think that he represents a parallel ritual domain to the poets of the Rig Veda. So they have Soma stuff and its accessory rituals, not all involving Soma, what later is called Shrauta. And then another side of things, which eventually is codified in the Atharva Veda, which would be magic, spellcraft, and healing. So I think Rudra is really emblematic of that ritual domain, which may or may not exist for real. And I think that these two domains are being contrasted in those Soma and Rudra hymns. In simple terms, it gets weird. So, but I think those two domains are really it's not really Rudra and Soma. It's really the two different hands of the ritual practice of the priests.
Okay. I don't think it's crazy.
Well, I hope not. Half my dissertations are agreeing this, so
Yeah.
we'll see.
Well, so I mean, like, a good dissertation is a slightly crazy dissertation. So,
Yeah, exactly. I think the same way. So mine's a bit crazy. The first two chapters are kind of arguing this, where I think there's two ritual domains really in the early stuff, and I think Rudra, because he occurs for much more with much more frequency in the Atharva Veda than he does the Rig Veda. So I think that that explains that a little. It's all about when these texts are collected and composed. It's a complicated question, but I think that the Soma and Rudra hymns are kind of at least hinting back to that those two different domains of ritual practice, partially at least.
and
Maybe not.
can you refresh us on the difference in time and composition between the Rig Veda and the Atharva Veda?
Yeah, I can. No one know. No, remember, as an asterisk, no one really knows. But Rig Veda is old, especially the family books, which are the core of the Rig Veda, books 2 through 7. There's complexities there, but not really important. The later books, which are added around those chapters, are later, especially book 10, which is the latest, generally considered to be the latest book of the Rig Veda. It has a lot of things in common with the Atharva Veda, like in terms of ritual and in terms of the Sanskrit, which is a bit younger. Is still solidly anchored in Rig Vedic tradition, but it gets a little more Atharva Veda-ish at the end there. Then we have the Atharva Veda that comes along in what's called the mantra period, which is after the composition of the Rig Veda proper, a little bit after book 10 probably. Um, and it has a whole bunch of rituals, like rituals for the king, marriage, life cycle rituals, um, domestic stuff, lots of magic. When I say magic, I don't mean anything weird. I just mean very pragmatic, very contextual kind of verbal formula. But it has a lot of that, which differs a lot from what's in the Rig Veda. Very specific things like heal me from this disease, where in the Rig Veda you'll see heal me from diseases, period. So you see a lot of that in the Atharva Veda, and it's after the Rig Veda. So, but we don't know. That's when it's collected. We don't know how far back the hymns are from. It's in a much younger version of the Sanskrit language, but it does not mean that there were not hymns that were not preserved yet around before that time. Because the Rig Veda was preserved for a specific political purpose, and the Atharva Veda maybe wasn't. So we can't really say anything definitively. It's probably younger. We don't know how far the tradition stretches back. I'm saying it stretches back to the Rig Veda, but I'm only one scholar, right?
Well, I see what you mean. I mean, this is a problem that you come up with in oral or orally based literature in any culture is this particular work as we know it is composed in this century. That doesn't mean there isn't some precedent work that's substantially the same that wasn't earlier and it got reworked over time.
Right. Exactly. Like when I watch, if I was a scholar in like 1,000 years and I watched Tangled, movie Tangled, I'd be like, oh yeah, when was Tangled collected? But when was Rapunzel? There's Rapunzel existed before, and probably since before it was written down as well, right? Or preserved accurately, and it gets worse because the poetry is encouraged to be different and changing every time. You have to innovate, and they do, right? And it's only frozen in a certain time, so it's hard to tell. But in general, Atharva Veda is younger, and Rudra is all over the Atharva Veda in much more overt ways than he is in the Rig Veda.
I'm
So
I'm gonna remember that Tangled analogy because it's really good.
that's what I always think of because yeah, it's like that. But and like I said, innovation is praised. So, but yeah, and then at the same time the Atharva Veda comes around, we have the Yajur Veda and the Sama Veda also developing into the things. Remember that they're not called Vedas actually until much later. But it's called the knowledges at this time.
And you mentioned the rituals called was it Shrouda?
Shrauta, that's a much later term that basically there's Shrauta and Gurhya rituals. Shrauta is a particular constellation of rituals that are more complicated and large. Gurhya is a particular constellation of rituals that are domestically oriented and that you can do by yourself in your house. Shrauta, you need priests.
I heard Shrouda and I thought here. Is that the here root?
Yeah, it's from shrew to here. Yep.
Okay. I'm just wondering if it was like a beckoning to the gods or something, like what the here part was.
There's different theories about why it's Shrauta, or if it's received knowledge, or if it's heard at the beginning of time from rishis and things like that. Well, rishis are the original like seers who heard the Vedas. Um, it's contested, but yeah, I won't get into it, but it's contested. And Grihya is domestic, derived from Gurha, the house. That's an easy one.
Okay. I just
But
saw.
those divisions do not exist in the Rig Veda, the entire Rig Veda. There's no Shrauta,
Hmm,
there's no Grihya. That's way later. During the Shrauta Sutras and the Grihya Sutras after the Upanishads.
makes sense. I just always want to, know why words are the words. But
Yeah, it's from Shrew. You're right. It's from Shrew to here.
yeah. Okay. So I didn't miss here. I didn't miss shrew. Uh,
No.
so you said that you had a particular hymn that you wanted to look at. You are co-host, so if you'd like, you can share screen. If you have like a written text you want to look at, or if you just want to talk about it orally, that'll work too. And I'll remind
Yeah, we
people.
can do 2.33 is I think the best Rudra hymn to read for people who want to know a little bit more about this god.
Yeah,
It has all the hallmarks of a good Rudra hymn. So yeah, I can share my screen.
let's
Probably
get
you
it
want to just do
from.
translation, right? Just in translation.
Sure. Although if you have the Sanskrit at hand, right,
Yeah,
for
we could
if we
dig
want to
into
get really
certain
nerdy.
words if your audience wants to. I have it here. So yeah, I'll share my screen. I have Dr. Joel Brereton's translation, and he worked with Stephanie Jamison to do this. So I'll share screen and I will bring that up.
Let me just interrupt this video for a minute to tell you about my friends and partners at grimfrost.com. These guys have been in the business for a really long time and they really care about getting the history right. They even get runes right, and I've done some of the runes for some of their products. If you're interested in historically authentic Viking Age products, that is the place you want to go. It's also a good place to get my books, especially if you live in Europe. I also want to update you on my books, my Wanderer's Journal, a blank journal with quotes from Havamal rendered in Younger Futhark by me, as well as in my Cowboy Havamal translation, is available for pre-order and should ship in North America by mid-April. And the second enhanced edition of my Poetic Edda translation will be available by the end of this year. It includes new poems not included in the first edition and thoroughly revised older poems. Poems that are already there, and a thoroughly revised introduction, and a lot more fantastic looking art.
All
Where,
right.
where can you find this translation, by the way?
It's available on it's online for free actually, or you could it's a 3 volume work. It's widely available online. I think this is from academia.edu. I got this,
Oh, okay.
but I don't remember
It's,
exactly.
it's probably also like a $350 book, but
Yeah, it's expensive, right? So you could yeah, you can find it online. I work closely with Dr. Brereton, so I don't think he'll care if I just have this on the internet.
just for people who want to follow up, it's always amazing. It's like, yeah, this is available on their academia.edu page, or you can pay Oxford University Press
Yeah,
$500.
exactly. But what's good about this translation is that he and Dr. Jamison explain what's going on first, for example, and lots of hymns. So if I just go through it. So this is from book 2, number 33. This is the poet, and this is the meter. It's in Trishku. Um, so let's just hop right in, I guess. So let your favor come here, O father of the Maruts. Do not keep us away from the sight of the sun. The hero on horseback should be indulgent. Might we be further propagated through our offspring, Rudra? So we see a lot of the things I was talking about in this first sentence. He's the father of the Maruts. When they say sight of the sun, they mean they're going to be dead. That's a death analogy there. So the only way you're away from the side of the sun is if you're gone from the world.
Same
Um,
analogy in Old Norse.
oh yeah, that's awesome. The hero on horseback is interesting. Only a few times in the Rig Veda do we see people riding horses. They usually have chariots. Rudra rides a horse. Um, they want to continue living through their kids, which is a big thing in the Vedas. Um, yeah. So, is there any questions about any of that, or want to dig into any of those words further or sentences further in Sanskrit? I can definitely do that with you guys.
The the hero on horseback is interesting, as you said, versus being pulled by a chariot.
Yeah, it's very interesting actually. The word's arvat for horse, a war horse usually, or yeah, a horse used for war, or a fast horse, an arvat. It's viro arvati, the hero on the horse.
Oh, interesting. Okay, with that old word for man, and then the usual word for horse is ashva, right?
Ashva is a general word for horse, but there's different types they talk about in the Rig Veda. There's a few different types of horses you could have, but Ashva is a general word for a general horse.
Hmm.
But
So,
Arvat is a war horse or a fast horse.
okay, what is that from?
Oh, that's a good question. I actually don't know. I had to look into it.
Okay,
It's Arvat. It looks like it would be something. As I don't want to say anything because I don't know.
yeah, just okay,
So second,
yeah.
through the remedies given by you that bring us best luck, Rudra, might I reach 100 winters, banish hatred away from us, very far away, distress away, and afflictions away, widely scattered. So you see, they're praising him here to bring his remedies.
And
Um,
this strikes me as a very common ancient and medieval turn of phrase that we want these things away from us. It's not like I feel like the modern version of this, and this sort of gives away the difference between people trying to fake older stuff and the actual older stuff is in a modern terms, it's like make this vanish, make it disappear, make it not exist. This is a worldview where these things are always there, but it's like make it far away from me.
that's exactly what they always say, especially with Rudra. It's get
Yeah,
it away. It's never like make it not happen. It's like Rudra's gonna shoot somebody with his arrow,
yeah,
100%. They just don't want that to be them,
yeah. It's
right?
what, but you see this exact turn of phrase. I mean, you see it in Old English and Old Norse magic. You see it in Mediterranean magic, right? It's not make this spell affect nobody. It's make the effects of that curse affect, land far away from me, right? May it be
Yeah,
someone no connection to me. Like it's gonna hurt somebody, but let it be nowhere close to me. Yeah.
that's really really cool. The word for remedy is beisaja, which is usually medicines or herbs.
Hmm.
Um, but they want all that stuff gone. 100 winters also is a really common way to say they want to live a full life. They usually don't actually mean 100 years. They mean they want to live a full, a meaningful life, pretty much.
Is it 100? Is it shutta? Is that right in
Yeah,
Sanskrit?
shot that, I believe. Let me check.
Um, Okay, so it is in fact that word. I didn't know if it was like maybe it was just many, but I guess 100 is often used to just mean, like you said, like a lot.
Yeah, it means basically exactly. It means a lot. Shata, yeah. Shatam hima, 100 winters. You don't see 100 winters very often, but they have that here. And it's an Indian winter, remember. They're not talking like Norse winter in
Yeah,
this
yeah.
context.
Well, right.
In glory, you are the most glorious of anyone born. Rudra, the most powerful of the powerful. O you with the mace in your arms, take us across to the far shore of distress, to well-being, keep away all assaults of malady. This is the most interesting verse for me in my dissertation because Rudra here, the only time ever in the Rig Veda where you see another god holding Indra's weapon. See the word mace? That's Vajra. So it's Indra's mace he's holding, not just any mace.
I was curious
Rudra
about that.
Rudra never holds this ever in any other place. He was his arrows or lances. He's the only other god who ever does it besides Indra. And I think here we're seeing that equation between Rudra and Indra, almost as two faces of the same being. So it's really interesting. And I dig really deep into this verse in my dissertation as
It's
well.
it's chaos wielding the weapon of order.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, pretty much. Or like that, right? I think that Rudra and Indra are very closely related, maybe even two mirrored sides of the same coin. I'm not sure they're the same being or not, but they're definitely mirrored beings of some kind. And
Mhm.
this is kind of hinting towards that Rudra is really another side of Indra himself. And yes, so this goes deep, but you can see that in the two texts, the Atharva Veda and the Rig Veda as well, where they're well, at least the Pepalada recension is a mirrored version of the Rig Vedic canon.
And what is the word used for glory and glorious? Is it um um
Let me see. In glory, you're the most glorious. It's Shrestha, or the most excellent.
which it's a fairly common word if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's common.
And but I think pretty often you see it. I mean, is there something to that being often used of Indra and then being used of Rudra here? Like,
Oh, no, yeah, I'm sure there is, but they're actually equated on a bunch of different levels. They're called the same names a lot, the same descriptors, like being fair lipped, it's called, and then also a few other adjectives I'd have to look up. But they're talked about in very personal terms in very similar ways, Indra and Rudra, which actually is very interesting. You see lots of similarities between them.
you would not expect that
No, you don't
from.
expect that, right? Exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that's one part of my theory too, that Indra and Rudra are kind of very closely related to each other in this way. And they are described in very similar terms. And here you see it in the most explicit way with Rudra holding the Vajra, which couldn't be any more explicit to me. Because
Yeah,
only Indra.
it's like seeing Loki hold Mjolnir or something, right? It's
Yes,
yeah.
yes, I think it's exactly like that, right? So yeah, that's a really important verse to my dissertation, actually. Um, Here we go. Here it turns a little. Let us not anger you, Rudra, through our acts of reverence, nor through our poor praise, nor through invocations shared with other gods. That's what I was talking about earlier, where they don't want to have a shared offering to him. Oh, bull, they call a lot of gods that. Set up our heroes with your remedies. I hear you are the best healer of healers. So we see that it's kind of dual here. Don't be angry with us because we praised you wrong, but also please come heal us. But don't be angry, right? You see kind of the uncertainty about Rudra in full display in this part.
I feel like
Um,
it's almost an address to a like a not to be too real or whatever, but it's like the way of addressing an abusive parent, right?
yeah, Rudra's an abusive parent, of course, will be unpredictable. Like, it's gonna hit, they're gonna hit you today, right? Rudra's is kind of like that, where it's you don't know what he's gonna do. He's very unpredictable, so it's best just to err on the side of caution. Be in your best behavior, do the best praise, say you're sorry before you do anything wrong, because he has the power to hurt very badly. So, but he also can heal anything. He's the best healer, as you can see there. So he's also able to heal any disease that he causes, usually, but also really anything. Um, Whoever invokes him with invocations and offerings, thinking, with my praises I might cut off Rudra as my own exclusive. The zeal of this person, let the red brown one with see the powerful lips thing, beautiful or fair lips. That's an Indra thing too. Not subordinate us. Rudra being tender-hearted and easy to invoke. See how the difference is? They're easy to invoke. Then read four again. Let's not anger you with our poor praise. Also, you're easy to invoke, right? So it's kind of like they're hedging their bets pretty much with Rudra.
I also like the easy to invoke. It's like, it's like easy credit or something. What what is the
Yeah,
what is the red brown word?
Babru probably. Yeah, Babru.
Okay. I,
He's very often called Babru, red or brown. Agni is also called this a lot.
is it what is that? What is that in association with like a is that a horse color or
Babra? That's a good question. If it could be of animals, I believe it's also used of animal fur in some instances, but don't quote me on that one. Definitely used of Rudra and Agni though.
the word for mongoose in Sanskrit is from that root, isn't it?
But I'm not sure.
I think it's the same word that becomes beaver in the European languages,
Oh,
but
does it? I
yeah.
wouldn't be surprised if it does. I think it is used of animal furs. So if you look at a squirrel like close up, it has that red brown.
Yeah, totally, totally.
So
And
I think it is, but I'm not sure about the root for mongoose.
I think just the reason I remembered is the factoid is that the root that becomes beaver in like Germanic and Slavic becomes mongoose in Sanskrit.
I think that's amazing. If that, I think that would not be surprising.
But it makes perfect sense. It's a medium-sized brown animal. Um,
Yeah.
but I was also thinking, here's my zany thing, right? Because just etymology stuff always tickles my fancy. I see the red brown and I think rude, and I think, well, the root for red is hreude. Like, is his name something to, like that could, is that a zero grade of the root for red? Is he the red one way or another? Has that been, I'm sure some,
That I've actually had that that same thought. I don't think anyone thinks that, but I wouldn't be surprised if somehow it is. He's often called this. So is lightning. Lightning is red, brown, and blue, and all sorts of colors. So he's connected with lightning a lot later, not explicitly in the Rig Veda, but in the Atharva Veda, and its later texts he is, and such as the Nila Rudra Upanishad, he is a lot. So Rudra, red, yeah, maybe. I had that thought in private, and now it's on the internet. You said it first though, so
okay.
so
Well,
yeah, maybe,
you
maybe.
know, inevitably some 19th century German said it before either of us. So,
I always do. I mean, they always do though.
um,
They always do.
but it's in a sentence that's 13 lines long and it's in Fraktur, so nobody will ever read it.
It's funny. Yes, indeed. All right. The bull in the company of the Maruts roused me up when I was in need with his mighty, energetic vitality. Free of malady, might I reach this like a shade during the heat. Like shade during the heat, might I attract the favor of Rudra. So here they're calling for his favor. But you'll see in a second it's going to change again. But they want him to be nice to them. Um, where, O Rudra, is that merciful hand of yours, which is a healing remedy, the bearer away, like you said, the bearer away of malady that comes from the gods? You should now be indulgent towards me, O bull. Help me right now. Um,
This bull thing really does recur a lot.
yeah, they if it's a like a manly god, which they mostly are, um, or even a hero, like Rama, for example, in the Ramayana, they'll call him. They call him bulls, or the word, yeah. They call him Versha or things like this, which just means manly, or Vershan really, but manly, but bull also. It's common, very common, not just for Rudra. Um, here we go again. To the red brown one, it's Babaru again. Bright-faced bull, I rouse forth greatly a great good praise him. I shall do reverence to the sparkling one. Here we see Agni stuff again. With acts of reverence, we sing the turbulent name of Rudra. So as Tuesha is the word for turbulent, it also means brilliant or glittering. I think this is a reference to on one level to fire was kind of spark. If you ever had of course everybody's probably had a bonfire where it like goes crazy or sparks stuff out sometimes. That's I think what they're talking about with Tuesha, or turbulent, unpredictable quality of Rudra. And what's interesting about that is that the poets will sometimes, very rarely, but sometimes call their poems Raudra or Rudriya, which means from Rudra. And then the poem itself won't be about Rudra in any way. So it must mean something else. And I think it means the poem is twisty or unpredictable or good, right? In that way. It's like, so that could be what they're talking about here too. But Rudra definitely is Tvesha, glittering or turbulent. Um, and they
More,
want to make the best praise for him possible. Go ahead.
more of that chaotic vocabulary.
Yeah, definitely chaotic stuff. Um, with sturdy limbs, the mighty red brown one of many forms has adorned himself with gleaming golden ornaments. From Rudra, who is a master over the abundant living world, lordly power will surely not be distant. Um, he's called many formed. Puru Rupa. Puru, many, Rupa form. Um, I think that this is a reference to him. Unpredictability comes in many forms. Disease comes in many forms. Enemies come in many forms. I think this is a reference to that kind of thing. It doesn't have to be, but he is called many-formed. Even throughout the tradition, later in later texts, Upanishads, he's called many-formed. Um, of course, this whole thing about him being the one god, the master, the lord, the Isha, becomes a huge thing later with Shiva. So could have it start here maybe. Um,
That's,
worthily, oh, go ahead.
it just occurred to me. Is it in the Mahabharata that Shiva is showing off the different forms he can take, and in one of them he says, "And lo, I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." Is that Shiva?
That's in the Bhagavad Gita, which is
Bhagavad
the
Gita.
center
No.
of the Mahabharata. It's not Shiva. It is Krishna, who
Oh,
there is an avatar of Vishnu. In that episode, at least, he is aware he's an avatar of Vishnu, and he's showing off his um his astral, his cosmic form, pretty much to this guy who needs to be convinced to fight his cousins. In short,
okay. Well,
but it's not Rudra. But those two compete for that later, actually, a lot. So there are places where Rudra is the master of everything, kind of.
hmm,
Where it's Shiva at that point, but there's a competition between these two to who is the lord of the world, kind of. And right, so you see that a lot later with who is the true master. Is it Vishnu? Is it Shiva? Is it both?
okay. Huh.
But yeah, he becomes this many-headed, many-handed being, and then the man who's being convinced Arjuna, he is convinced to go to battle after that. It's a whole long discussion about what dharma means and what your duty is as a warrior and all this kind of thing. Bhagavad Gita is really interesting, actually, but it's not Rudra there. Um, Worthily you bear the arrows and the bow. See, this is his usual weapons. Worthily, the sacrificial neck ornament of all forms. Not really clear what that is. It's a glittering golden ornament of some kind. Worthily you parcel out the whole formless void. Surely there exists nothing more powerful than you, Rudra. This is basically just kind of blowing smoke at Rudra at this point to make sure he knows he's the best and he's not going to hurt you. Um, Praise the famed youth sitting upon high seat. Garta is called Garta. The high seat means the archer's seat on a chariot. So it's not just a high seat; it's the high seat where the archer sits. Um, the mighty one pouncing like a terrifying wild beast. Curiously, Vishnu is also called a wild beast. Sometimes in the mountains, roaming around the mountains. That's another discussion, I guess, maybe for another day. But Vishnu has that similarity with Rudra. Being praised, having mercy on the singer Rudra. Let your weapons cast down another than us, just like you were talking about.
Yeah. Once again,
Not,
it's not.
not me.
Yeah. It's not. Let your weapons be stayed. It's let your weapons hurt. Not me. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Rudra's arrows are coming or somebody. That's 100% for sure. Um, Almost done with this one. Even a little boy bows in response to his approving father as he approaches a Rudra. This is really interesting. You were mentioning this earlier with like the parents thing. But he bows in response to his approving father as he approaches Rudra. I will him, the giver of much, the master of the settlements, praise to bestow on us your remedies. More of that same um, kind of over praising Rudra almost. Your gleaming remedies, O bullish Maruts, this is to the Maruts, which bring best luck, which are joy itself, which our father Manu chose. Those of Rudras do I want as luck and lifetime. So they're talking to the Maruts in one this one verse, which are of course his sons. Might Rudra's lance avoid us? Once again, the hostile thought of the turbulent one, though great, shall go around us. Slacken the taut bows for our patrons, our bounteous patrons. Be merciful to our progeny and posterity, O munificent one. Basically, don't kill us. So you see, at the end, you see the turn again, right? Don't. You're so awesome and great for a bunch of stanzas, and then don't kill me. Don't kill my
Yeah.
children. Right?
Yeah.
Make the bows just not be slackened for us, for our patrons, which are the ones that are being sacrificed on behalf of, probably.
It's a little bit of a little bit of the tone of approaching the mafia dawn, right?
It's really, it's actually really very similar to that. Where yeah, he can give you, and especially on the day of his daughter's wedding, he can give you what you need, right? But you have to be respectful when you approach him and do the right things, or he's just going to have you killed. Exactly the same thing as a mafia don.
Right. I mean, I almost expect, you him to me the day of my daughter's wedding. Yeah.
I completely agree. Actually, last verse. You red brown bull, constantly visible, again an Agni thing. Let it be so that you do not become angry, O God, and you do not smite us in quotation mark, us in parentheses. Hearing our calls, be aware of us here, Rudra. May we speak loftily at the ritual distribution in possession of good heroes. You see how it goes back and forth with that? We're afraid of Rudra. We love Rudra. We're afraid of Rudra. We love Rudra. Please don't kill us, kind of stuff. That's exactly what I was kind of talking about.
That's it's a fascinating and very real text, right? I mean, this is the kind of what's the word that I want to use here? The um, ambivalence about powerful but not necessarily beneficent gods that people are going to feel in a polytheistic situation.
It's true, and a lot of them, none of them are as um, are like that to Rudra's degree. None of them are like that to Rudra's degree, but there are gods who are the same kind of feel. Where Varuna, for example, he can do bad things too. Gods aren't always. No one here in the Rig Veda is devoted in like a later like devotional relationship to these gods. You don't pray to them every night. You have a economical relationship to them, or you have if you do a ritual, they do something for you. They're not going to care about your life, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
They
this is my cosmic landlord, and
right?
yeah, he might do me the favor of letting me live here, but I've got to pay him the rent. Uh,
Yes, and the rent here is good poetry, pretty much.
yeah, and then if I don't pay it to him, he's going to send somebody to break my legs or make
That's
or
right.
give me the plague, right? Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Rudra he causes all sorts of illnesses, but later, especially in the Nila Rudra Upanishad, which Dr. Tim Lupin has a whole paper on, he's connected to diseases which have lots of little pustules or sores,
Hmm.
and we think that maybe that, or Dr. Lupin thinks, and I also think that maybe that's connected to lightning strikes or arrow strikes.
Uh-huh.
And lightning itself in the Atharva Veda is connected with disease. So the lightning association definitely grows, and he definitely is not just plague, but all sorts of different diseases.
You see some similar analogies in the North, where in Old English, a lot of magical remedies are invoked against, quote, elf shot, right? Elves, like, I guess, presumed to be sort of shooting their little bows at you and giving you your sores or whatever. Um,
That's are those illnesses, are those diseases things that cause little sores?
I don't know. It just says like I can send you some of this if you want. Just email me and remind me. But
Please do.
there's the it's actually like remedies against elf shot, like against whatever it is that elves are causing you. I don't know that it actually says what it is. It's just whoever the composer of it considers it, just like, you know what I'm talking about, the elf shot thing. Um,
Yeah, they do it all the time in these texts too, where I mean, they're not talking to me or
yeah,
anyone here, right?
totally.
They all are aware of all these associations, what they're exactly talking about. And we have to kind of guess.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And
later it's said that this particular illnesses, the Vaktikara illness, I think it was called.
but is that what
Um,
they understand 1,000 years before that, right? That's
we
always
don't know, right? Yeah, we don't know.
and and actually I think the biggest thing that occurs to me in reading through this with you, and thank you for the very interesting commentary the whole way, is you see in Old English, Old Norse, Old Head German, you get like maybe you get the little remedy against, elf shot or dwarf shot or whatever. You don't get the hymns to the gods because everything is written down by people who don't believe in them anymore. There
Oh,
must have been stuff like this, right? This is exactly what we don't have for the Norse gods, right? We have nothing like this. There's never this kind of addressed um, stuff to them, and this is exactly what we're missing to actually get a sense of the religion and not just the mythology. This is the
that's
religion
really
here.
interesting. I have I'm always complaining about how, oh, this is all we have. This is all we got to work with. But now, right, I guess it could be worse.
It'd be a lot worse. Yeah, you could just have stories that are written down enough later that people are always going to say, well, but maybe this is just Christian. That the I don't think it is, but there's always people say, well, maybe just Christians made up everything about Thor and Odin. It's like, oh, I don't think that, but the fact that our sources are so poor that you can think that is annoying. Uh,
It's really interesting. So is the elf shot stuff. I really would love to read about that because that's reminds me a lot of Rudra's diseases, pretty much.
yeah. In fact, there's a Old Norse runic inscription on a piece of human skull, um, which asks Odin, Wolf, whoever that's supposed to be, and High Tyr to help me against this dwarf, this thing that and then it's like a dwarf lady has caused me. And since it's on a skull, the presumption is, maybe he's got a headache. And so he's inscribed
Oh,
as sympathetic magic on a skull to like help me against the headache this dwarf lady has caused me. Um,
sympathetic magic is all over the Atharva Veda. That's basically what they do there too. Where
yeah, when you said nothing weird, I'm like, well, nothing weird in the ancient or medieval sense, but like it's slightly weird from a modern sense, maybe. Although not
right.
really, because voodoo doll, everybody understands that concept.
Yeah, exactly. So you want me to close this out?
Yeah, sure. Questions, remarks from Patreon. What have we got out
Yes.
there?
Any
I haven't
questions?
seen anything come up.
I could talk for hours about Rudra for real, but I'm glad to have been able to talk about him for a little while with you guys.
It's a great discussion. It's so interesting to me that you can have these figures recur again and again and again, clearly be important at an earlier period than they're even really being talked about in detail. And then just all of a sudden something bubbles up, right? Because like as you mentioned, there's a lot more in the Atharva Veda than in the Rig Veda. That doesn't mean he's not there. Just for whatever reason, randomly people aren't talking about or preserving what they're saying.
Right, exactly.
I mean, presumably we have that situation. I don't mean to keep bringing it back to Norse stuff, but
No, please do. I
is
love
it
the Norse.
something?
I don't know much about it, but I like to hear about it.
Well, we have the same thing, right? When the earliest text that ever mentions any of the gods by name is Tacitus, right? A Roman writing 1,000 years before we have the Eddas actually written by people speaking these languages. Um, and the only god that he ever mentions in by a Germanic name instead of a Roman name is Nerthus, which he calls a goddess, but then that's the name that becomes Njordur, a male god in Old Norse. So like there's some being like Njordur floating around on the lips of these Germanic tribes in the Roman era. They're calling her a goddess, or a Roman is misunderstanding it as a goddess. Um, but he doesn't say the name Odin or Thor, but you've got to presume they're there. Somewhere behind the scene, there's the gods that become the major gods later. It doesn't just because Tacitus doesn't mention them by their Germanic names doesn't mean that his informants don't talk about them. It just means that he, for whatever reason, doesn't hear something that he considers worth reporting, or that's what he means when he says Mercury and Jupiter or whatever.
That is really interesting.
So yeah, the fact that you can get it from the horse's mouth in India is not such a bad situation.
You definitely can. Yeah, yeah. And it's beautiful poetry, the Rig Veda. So it's hard Sanskrit, but beautiful. And it's quite cool.
And
Tim
the
wants to.
the meter, by the way, I mean I noted there was that mention about the meter. Are the meters like the Iliad and Odyssey, or is it
I don't
something?
know enough about the Odyssey and the Iliad to tell you.
Okay. Uh,
There's mostly it's different meters they use. They all have different syllables and how many basically have right syllabic lines. They all differ in the number of syllables for each line, but they'll call different names like Trishtub and Anishtub and
okay, I heard the tri, and I figured it's three, right? Three something. But
Trishtub. Yeah, I actually never thought about the word Trishtub as an actual word. Um, I just always was like, it's a type of meter, but I never actually thought that there is tree in there, and tree is three in Sanskrit.
yeah,
I don't
I
know what
just
that means.
wondered if
Trishtub.
that was because I was thinking if that's like 3 feet, then that could be like dactylic hexameter or something. But anyway, just I've gotten a little more interested in meters in the last few years. Peter said, to what extent do you think Rudra and material in the Atharva Veda might be associated with non-Vedic Tantra and indigenous Indian ritual practice?
There are people who think this. And I don't necessarily don't think that, but the main problem is we have nothing to go on. The only non-Vedic thing from this period that exists is the Indus River Valley civilization, and we don't know what the hell those seals mean. It's in a language that we don't understand, and we have the pictures and stuff. But that picture of Shiva could, or if it is Shiva, could be a king. It could be a person wearing a mask. We have no idea what that is. So maybe there is some kind of different group of people other than the Vedic, whatever that means, Aryans, right? That had this god Rudra that was incorporated in. There's just absolutely no way to tell if that was
Yeah.
the case.
Yeah, this stuff is so I find so hard to trace. I mean, actually, you mentioned the possible link of Apollo to Rudra. Apollo is often regarded as that in the Greek pantheon because there's not a
Oh, he
Greek,
is.
yeah, there's not a Greek etymology for his name. And I think a name a lot like Apollo occurs in like alluvian text. So is he an Anatolian god who's borrowed into, like this stuff is so hard to trace. And then, of course, you have people on one extreme who say, well, if the god doesn't have an Indo-European etymology for his name, then he must be a pre-Indo-European, non-Indo-European god, which is
They
pretty,
always do that. But then Indra, that has to be a non
yeah, right.
because he has no etymology that makes sense either. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
all. What exactly does it mean to be a Vedic person and a non-Vedic? It's all very kind of. It's a great thought, and I don't know, and no one knows, and nor will I ever know, unfortunately.
I feel like it's a little bit along the same lines of the old notion that when you look at the two families of gods in the Norse text, the Aesir and the Vanir, that one is the invading Indo-European pantheon and one is the pre-Indo-European pantheon. It's like,
That's
well,
an old, yeah,
it's a neat idea, but how do you figure that out? Because there's absolutely nothing written by the non-Indo-European people from before Indo-European speakers got there. So how do you know? Um,
yeah.
anyway, well, like I said, I really appreciate you taking the time and giving us this really
It's no
insightful.
problem at all. And I thought about it a little bit since you asked, and I have no idea why Trishtuba is tree in there. It may not even be related to tree. It's four lines of 11 syllables.
Oh yes, that doesn't, yeah, because
So
44.
how it may not be tree. I had to look into this, the etymology of Trishtu, but it bothers me now. But thank you.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna go look it up.
I'm, I'm here to bother you. Okay, interesting. Well, appreciate you. Let's have you back. We'll talk about more Vedic stuff
I'm always ready. Yeah. And I
before
hope
2 years
everybody
back
enjoyed
again.
it. Thank you guys so much for having me on here again. I really enjoy talking about this stuff. So if you have any more questions or anything, save them for next time, I guess.
Yeah, or giving me on Patreon, I'll pass them on.
Yeah, well, please do. Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. All the best, sir.
Bye, guys.